today. It's fun to be here with the with Baylor Nation. I'm excited that I could join you all today and talk a little bit about some things that I think are going to be helpful to some of you, whether you're an owner of a company, whether you're a manager, whether you're just getting out of the chute, you just graduated. And what I'm going to talk to you about today are some things that, frankly, and I hope the business school isn't listening. No, I know they are, but that you don't necessarily learn in the classroom. And it's some things that we're going to talk about that you can learn the hard way through the experiences, some of which I ran into, or you can learn them the easier way by picking up some other people's knowledge. And that's a big reason that I wrote the book. So we're going to talk about a number of things today. And I'm going to bring up a PowerPoint presentation, and you can do some screen saving, or pick up your phone, grab some shots, because I think there's some things that you're going to want to read over, think about, take some notes on. So I encourage you to do that as well. Well, let me just tell you a little bit about me. Like Robert said, I graduated in 1992 and I immediately went into politics. Loved politics, ran for office actually in a weak moment. I didn't win, but gained a lot of experience out of that. And I found myself going through my career working as a lobbyist, as a political consultant, as someone that was pretty savvy, that knew how to protect my back and those of the people around me. But I found myself one day in an atmosphere, in a culture that, frankly, I didn't know any of the rules. I didn't understand some of the actions that were occurring around me. And as a result of that, and you're going to hear more about my story, I learned some experiences that shook my career in a mighty way. And after going through it, I wanted to teach others about it. And that's what inspired me to write the book. So let me see, and I'm going to bring up my presentation right now, assuming it's going to work. There we go. All right, so we're going to be talking today about fireproofing your organization. I'm going to tell you about the fire theme in just a minute, but fireproofing your career, protecting it, as well as your company and the culture within it. It's so important. Right off, if you're somebody that's interested in the subject of workplace culture, learning more about office politics, learning the things to do and not to do, I do have a newsletter, and if you want to sign up for it, and as an incentive, if it's of interest, I'm going to give away a couple copies of my book to folks that sign up for the newsletter. If you text Arsonist to 66866. That's Arsonist to 66866. You see it there. Give away a couple of copies of my my book, and hopefully I'll be able to have those names at the end. And if not, I will contact you directly thereafter. But you put your email address in once you get through that process, and we'll give away a couple of those. And I think you're going to get some good information that's going to help you as a manager or employee. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of my story in just a minute, but we're going to be doing a number of different things over the next 25 minutes or so. I'm going to tell you about arsonists, but we're going to profile them, what to look for, who those people are that can give you problems and give your organization problems. We're going to walk through some challenges that organizations face and what the qualities are, what the problems you might see in a toxic workplace if you're trying to figure out essentially what you've got going in your company. We're going to talk about what creates a toxic workplace. What are those factors that cause them? And usually, much like anything in a vacuum, some good things can happen or bad things can happen. And I'm going to walk through those. And then we're going to talk, and I have a feeling this is what drove a lot of you here today. We're going to talk about those things that you can do to protect yourself. And that these days can mean from the CEO level on down, protect yourself within your culture or protect your company from problems. So we're going to talk about some of those steps as well. And finally, we're going to talk about a couple other things. One, I want to talk specifically about what's happening right now in the COVID-19 environment when so many of you, I got dressed up enough for it. I actually put on a button-down shirt, but half of you are probably in shorts or sweats watching this presentation today. So what's going on with the work from home type of culture changes that are taking place? And then finally, and especially we as folks from the Baylor community, we have a lot of things in common, but I know one of those is either faith experiences or those things in life that change us and shape us. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what I call rising from the ashes and what's happening in my life, and I want to share with you to hopefully give you some inspiration and just amazing what can happen from bad experiences. So let me tell you my story. I'd had, as I mentioned, great career going in government affairs and as a lobbyist, worked for some phenomenal groups, and the idea of culture, and especially a toxic one, had never crossed my mind. I had worked for phenomenal organizations, worked for great managers, great leaders within those, and when I was working for a company that was shutting down, I needed to go out and find a new job, and I found it, and it looked great. Pay was good, the benefits were good. Nothing seemed to be particularly wrong with it. Just another in a string of successful opportunities. And it went well till about 30 seconds in. And people began walking up to me, and I swear this happened. My book is fictionalized, but what I'm about to tell you is absolutely the case. I start walking in, and I've got people coming up to me, putting their hand out and saying, "Hey, Pete, it's good to meet you. Man, I'm praying for you." Well, that's a wonderful thing to hear in most cases, but it was a little strange when complete strangers are saying that to you, and you start wondering why they're saying that. I had other people begin to speculate about what my next job would be if this wouldn't work out. Folks, that was not normal, and this was not the normal situation. Within hours, the CEO calls me into the office, sits me down and says, "Hey, Pete, probably should have told you all of this before, but what I'm about to tell you, if we had talked about it, I don't think you'd have taken the job. I need to tell you about your coworker." And in the book, I call her Hazel. He said, "Hazel has filed dozens of complaints. She's made wild, false accusations against people in the company. She's threatened us and our board and everyone around us in every way possible. All sorts of things have happened that we think trace back to her that have caused us problems. But we made the decision that it is better to keep her within the organization than risk her hurting us from the outside." And that was the beginning of my understanding of what a toxic organization with weak leadership, with shaky values, without any type of infrastructure of dealing with their problems, what that looked like. He said, "I want to tell you a story in case I haven't been clear." And Pete, well, I've got to tell you, we've given you most of her role, and she's not happy you're here. And ladies, I would say this just as a preface, this has nothing to do with male-female relations in the book. This is just simply what I experienced in the job. So he went on to tell me this story, my CEO did, and he said there was a volunteer fire department. He said it was in Florida, but he could have been talking about another state. And he said there was a fire department that had been having a rash of fires in their small county. Some years they had just a few dozen fires, but that year they had nearly 100. Well, they began to start thinking through, sorting out what the heck could have happened here that would cause this many fires to take place. And they began to investigate what was causing all of these issues. And people began asking some hard questions. And some leaders of the community began putting some people's feet to the fire to find out what the heck was going on. Was it climate change? Was it they weren't educating people enough about the issues involving safe handling materials, those types of things? Just finding out what those root causes were. Well, they finally found out what the cause was. It was the volunteer fire department. You see, in that organization, they had concerns initially about, well, there's no fires taking place for the most part in our county. If we're ever going to get any more equipment, we need some more action going on. Other people hearing this said, well, if we need more fires, if that's what we're looking for, I've got a buddy whose business is going under. Maybe he'd like the insurance check. Other people just said out of the department, hey, you know what? Whatever you guys need burned, help me out. And then there were a few members that said, well, my neighbor's got this shed in his backyard. The guy drives me crazy. Why don't we torch the darn thing? These types of things began to shape their philosophy, the institutionalizing of causing trouble. And that he got to the end of that story and he said, so Pete, what I described there in the fire department, that's Hazel. And I said, sir, you just described an arsonist. And he said, well, yeah, I guess Hazel's our arsonist around the office, but you're just gonna have to be careful about not getting burned. I went on that day and quickly, and you can read in my book if you want to, essentially what had happened with that organization. I began learning over a number of years the compromises that they had made about dealing with bad behavior, the choices and decisions that they had punted onto whoever was going to be in their roles in the future. After Cecil, my CEO, got done, he passed me on to my new supervisor, who explained to me that she didn't know how to manage a toxic employee, that she had been given no power to deal with that toxic employee and had none of the tools to deal with them. And ladies and gentlemen, as you think about your organizations, whether you're leading them or whether you're in the middle of an organization that is facing challenges, whether it's with behavior, whether it's with productivity, a lot of things are going to trace back precisely to those decisions that leadership makes, that managers make on whether they want to deal with the problems within their organization. But frankly, starting way back with hiring, starting way back with what the values of the organization are that people are going to look at from the outside and decide, is this an organization that I want to spend my career with? Well, let's start off. I've got the profiling of arsonists as that first category there. Let's move on to it. What their motives are, and this comes directly from the U.S. Fire Administration, which kind of fascinated me as I was doing research for the book. I'm going to be talking right now about arsonists in real life. Those ones that we see in the news burning stuff down. They have financial motives. They may be torching it for an insurance check, cover-ups, people that are concealing maybe another crime that they've committed or a violation of some sort. Some of them, and we all know people like this, that like just seeing stuff burn. And in the workplace, you see a lot of that. And I have a feeling there's some people that are smiling and nodding their heads right now that see those people constantly, that are just stirring up trouble. Then let's flip that around. You have the people that have the superhero complex, people that light fires just because they want to be seen putting them out. Then you have folks that are looking for a little revenge, and others just are attention hounds. They love getting the attention, being seen doing something heroic. Well, you see all of these different things in the office role as well. Destructive people that may cause a heck of a lot of problems if they're not stopped. And let me warn you on this point on arsonists. Your average employee that doesn't care about their future, about moving up in the organization, they're not going to worry about this. They'll take the paycheck. They'll gladly accept what's given to them. But the arsonists tend to be people that are highly motivated, often highly charismatic. They want to get ahead in their organization. And as you move up the ladder, they're looking to move up the ladder in very, very different ways, and possibly by burning the people around them. So be careful about that as you're looking at your organization, to look for those people that aren't playing by any rules that anyone else is. It can cause some problems. So let me talk a little bit about what some of the signs are of when you find yourself in a bad workplace. You know, what are those telltale things that you say, this is exactly what I'm in? It's not just every once in a while somebody getting into an argument type of thing. It is ingrained stuff that can have a major effect. And a big one is retaliation. Retaliation, and I list 20 signs in my book, top 20 list. Retaliation is a big one. Essentially, somebody brings up a concern and they disappear the next week. Or they may question something that's going on within the organization, a new project. They may be somebody that plays a little bit of devil's advocate at times, and they find that they are going to be taken out at the knees over that. Another one is you may see bad behavior defended. And it's one of those, well, you know what, this person may be a problem, but they bring in a lot of money. Don't worry about what you're seeing. Gossip, that's another big one. And a lot of this comes from the fact that a lot of organizations don't communicate well with their employees. And when their employees don't hear from the top, they're going to start making up their own storylines. And that's really when gossip can start in a big way. Another one is screaming and silence. Screaming, of course, is never good in an office. Probably everybody's seen it at some point. But that means there are arguments that are taking place in a non-civil manner. The silence one, to me, is actually more dangerous, more corrosive, in that, imagine this, you're in a manufacturing plant and you have lots of expensive equipment, and some of it, if not used properly, is dangerous. And you have a culture that silences people that give their opinions. That silence, when you hear that other opinions are not valued, or that you're going to get in trouble, or you may get demoted or prevented from getting that next promotion, may keep you silent in bringing up that safety issue, or that concern that may cost millions of dollars, or could lead to a scandal. All these different things. Secrecy is a big one. And of course, when good employees find themselves in a bad environment, they're going to go find something else. But all of these things don't happen in your standard average workplace. It takes some triggers. And one of them, frankly, is, and this is one of the most powerful actions of all, it's inaction. That organization, that leadership team, the management team, that frankly, they may have a poster that goes up on the wall, but they don't have any strong cultural signals that they're sending to their employees. They may have the wrong priorities in place in leadership. And yes, culture is something that should be guided by the leaders of the company. Employees can always make it better. Managers can always make it better. But it's the folks at the top that send the signals that are the most important of all. Another big one is different rules for different people. And I have a feeling as I say this, there are a lot of people nodding their heads at this one. If you have different rules depending upon the elevation of somebody within an organization, it's the path towards a heck of a lot of problems. And it's something that every good culture is going to address. And every problem culture usually has as one of its challenges when the problem goes public, when lawsuits are filed, those types of things, that you had some folks playing by the rules and other people doing whatever they wanted to because of who they were. So I'm talking a lot about bad culture right now, and I'm going to flip around to the side of good culture in just a moment or two. But I want to talk a little bit about the damage that can come from it, because culture and the whole idea of what goes on in the workplace, a lot of people make it a really touchy-feely kind of thing. People singing Kumbaya or playing ping pong in the break room. All those things are really cool. But if you don't get culture right, you can have a whole lot of problems. Finances are a big one. Frankly, ask the people at Wells Fargo right now that are facing government penalties, that have lost business, that have faced all sorts of problems that came from management and leadership that skirted their own rules and the federal rules on all sorts of areas. Legal liability is another big one, the lawsuits that emerge regularly. Attraction and retention of employees. There's studies out that say that someone is 54% more likely to leave a company if they are in a, sorry about that, my slides changed. If they are in a toxic environment. Reputation, 2 words, Ellen DeGeneres, or, and sorry people in Houston for saying this, Houston Astros. Bad things happen, and increasingly more publicly bad things happen when you skirt the rules, when you don't share your values in the right way all the way down the organization. And that finally on productivity, you're going to see a drop of between 30 and 40% in productivity from employees, frankly, because the gossip goes wild. All sorts of things start happening, and people just don't feel as connected as they used to be. So those are a few things to think about in terms of the damage. But let me touch now on what I call fireproofing your company, as well as fireproofing yourself against bad conditions. And we're going to go real quickly into Q&A if there's questions right after that. But fireproofing your company, folks, again, it starts with leadership. You got to buy in. You've got to be following the rules that you set because everyone is watching you. Management. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are leading a company and you're not training your managers to lead people, or you're selecting people that do not have people skills, that want to love their employees, screen them out. Keep those high performers that are jerks in situations where they can perform from you, but not hurt everybody else in the process. The rank and file employees, share your organization's values. Leaders of companies, share your values in everything you do. Let people become evangelists for the great culture you have, and let them understand what the rules are and hold to them. Processes. Let's talk about starting from HR, and I don't have time in which to go through some of the questions, but putting people in real life situations in the hiring process, encouraging employees, and you need a culture that people want their friends to work in for this to work, but encouraging good employees to recruit their friends to work there. And then finally, protecting your values of your organization. If problems come up, address those, and then running toward the fire. If there's issues come up, be a leader that takes them on, not lets that fire come to them that can get out of control, and the problems start from there, start to build from there. And now, and I know this especially for the younger people watching in the audience, and I've heard from some of you in the Baylor family that responded or listening today, things that affect your career at any point in your life. Number one, you better be a high performer if someone is coming after you. You need to be somebody providing value to the organization, so never let your performance slip. Record keeping. If you have somebody causing trouble, inflicting pain on your professional career, take notes. You may need them at some point. Relationships, be a coalition builder. Make sure that you are doing all the things you can to have friends within the organization. Next one, research. Research a few different things. From the outside, I want you to research what your company is like before you take a job. Talk to people on LinkedIn. You can find people that have served within that prospective company. And I know some folks are unemployed right now, so I'm talking to you. Go out and reach out to people at companies you're applying for, probably former employees from those organizations. Ask them what it's like to work there. And you can find out a lot about an organization from the outside. Go to Glassdoor reviews, and you're going to find out a lot of information there. Also, research when you get inside a company, find out what the culture is, because you will find quickly whether it is really bad behavior of any kind, one of the first things you're going to want to do if you're facing some bad behavior, some sabotage, sexual harassment, you name it, your first instinct is not to go to HR. There's a lot of other processes that you need to think through in talking to people you trust to find out what you're going to do next. And I walk through some of that in the book because that's truly one of the most important periods you will ever have in your career. It could be a life-shaping thing of what happens at that point. I'm going to provide you some tools. I don't have time to go into all of them today, but they're important. That time is going to be one of, as I said, one of the most key points in your life. So look on the inside, look from the outside. Instincts. Ladies and gentlemen, there's that old saying of just because you're paranoid doesn't mean you're not being followed. And trust your gut. And if things are happening, especially 1, 2, or 3 times, or if that person that's always communicated with you suddenly has gone radio silent, trust your instincts and start thinking more proactively to protect yourself. Find out what's going on. Talk to people you're close to within the organization. Not to be paranoid, but when there's behavioral changes, take note. 2 other quick things on this line, and I'm going to move on to close. But number 6, no one watches out for you individually. Okay, that sounds a little harsh. Yes, people are going to care about you. Yes, you're going to have workplace friends that are going to watch out for you. But what I mean by that is no one is ever going to be a better advocate for you than you are. And there's times that you may face in your career if you are in a toxic environment that frankly no one is going to have your back. And I want you to realize that, because you learn that the hard way. You do not learn that through looking around at all the people that were smiling at you before. A lot of people are going to watch out for themselves, not to hurt you, but to protect themselves. Because self-interest, above all else, trumps just about everything else in workplace situations. People may care about you very much. They may want to wish you well, but are they going to stick their necks out and risk their own jobs to protect you? I hate to tell you, but usually not. I would guess about 99% of the time they're going to pray for you and hope you get through it, and probably give you a nice recommendation on LinkedIn. But the people that want to risk their own careers for yours are going to be few and far between. And if they do, God bless them. And that is a true friend for life, but it's rare. It's very, very rare. So I want to talk about a couple of different things. I'm going to talk about what you see on the screen here in just a minute. I'm going to be wrapping this up very shortly. But first, we're in unusual times right now. And I know there's all sorts of different levels of organizations listening to me right now. In the COVID-19 time, where so many people are working from home, I want to encourage a couple different things today. If you are a manager, I want to encourage you to reach out to your people on a personal level. If you're not talking to them regularly, not just in Zoom calls, but as people, finding out what's happening in their lives a little bit right now, and in doing so, providing you more insight into what may be happening in the workplace, you're missing out on an opportunity. Employees, you are not being seen right now by your managers, and your managers may not fully understand what's happening around you. And if you're having challenges right now, maybe you are a combination of dealing with an elderly parent, you may have somebody with COVID in the home, and you may be doubling as, or quadrupling as an employee and a second grade teacher. Talk to people and have them understand what you're dealing with on some level. If your performance is lacking. And for the most part, people are going to understand. And of course, you want to gauge this out. But communication is key right now. It really is. So I want that's just a little bit on on this work from home time. I want to tell you and finish with this. Number one, I hope you can take some practical things from this today. Whether you're a great manager, there's some things you can learn to become better. But share your values in a company. Watch out for tough situations. But the last thing I want to leave you with is sometimes there's opportunities in life that can come from the worst situations. And ladies and gentlemen, for me, and the reason I wrote the book, The Arsonist in the Office, was everything I was told by my organization was that I was going to be facing a rough situation. And they weren't wrong. They were incredibly spot on. But my assumption had been that when bad behavior, company risking behavior was going to take place, I was going to be protected. And when it turned out that I was facing behavior that bordered on the surreal, the types of things that, frankly, people read my book and they say they're having heart issues reading through it. Sometimes they're laughing hysterically, but sometimes it hits them very hard. I was facing Dante's ninth circle of hell. And mixed with it was some of the craziest behavior you've ever seen. But as a result of that, when I spoke up, I fully expected my organization to step in, and they didn't. And they went so far as to remove me. And as I learned in the end, they were more concerned about that toxic employee and making sure that things didn't blow up there than they did about me as a employee that just simply wanted to resolve a problem. And I lost my job. So I will close out with this. I wrote this book, and my goal was I want to help people. I want to take a terrible experience that I went through and transform it into something amazing. And frankly, and share this with the Baylor community, the Lord is providing some incredible opportunities. I'm working my butt off, but the opportunities have been incredible to help organizations from small businesses to Fortune 500 companies, to speaking to Baylor Alumni Association, to churches, to Chamber of Commerce's, talk radio, talking about issues that are so front of mind. We see it every day, but it is very difficult to deal with these workplace culture situations. I leave you with that because out of one of the most difficult times in my life, when I frankly got burned, I learned a lot from it, took those experiences, and I've changed them into an opportunity that is helping people literally around the world, and thankfully at my alma mater today. Thank you for this opportunity. It's been great to talk with y'all. You can see my information there. And ladies and gentlemen, we do have a few questions, and I'm going to look at those real quickly. First one, how much credit for your success goes to your Baylor freshman roommate? Oh my gosh. All right, I'll talk with you offline, Trace. How can Baylor students apply these principles to life in the dorms and on campus? I would say treat people well, but always keep an eye out. Good question. Tips on dealing with passive aggressive people. I like football, and unfortunately our Baylor team is not playing this weekend, but a few things I've learned. When a quarterback is being looked at by the defense, you can either look at their movements or look at their eyes. Watch for people's reactions. Watch how they're treating you. Don't just watch their words, because those words may be a signal in a completely different direction. The number to receive my newsletter is 66866. And let's see. Let me read this one out loud to you. There's a person that read my book, and it said, made me feel much better to know there are others out there like me. Regarding the commandment, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. After coming forth with serious information, I became the enemy, and people made false statements about me. How can people who should be supporting ethical values break this commandment? Wow. We see it every day. Sadly, we do. And I would just say to you, people are not all people are great. Even good people are terrible, but be careful. Definitely never harden your heart where you can't trust anyone, but be wary of all of us, knowing that we're all infallible. We all are not always on our best. Sometimes we are extremely selfish. So watch for those signs where things just aren't adding up, and be careful. And the last one, whatever happened with Hazel, what would I have done differently? I would have protected myself from the instinct and really watched out for what I was seeing, and taken those bad signs as a sign to evacuate very quickly. And with that, I better wrap it up. Thank you so much for today. And Robert, let me turn it back to you. And thank you again. God bless.